Yo, my name is Sugi and this time I'll be teaching you guys how to play Shaco Jungle. Before I actually talk about the runes and masters and abilities, I want to talk about the jungle route itself. I started with Machit, 5 potions and blue orb. Blue orb is really good in my opinion because you're able to reveal red or blue camp and deceive in and counter jungle the enemy and steal it or kill the enemy jungle. Ward is also a next good choice for trinket. Lens is not that great in my opinion for Shaco because he's really heavily focused on counter jungling in my opinion and ganks. But in a sense, Lens is an okay option. So around 1 minute and 10 seconds you start out piling up the boxes to the corner of the blue, okay? Because if you throw them in the middle of the blue, the boxes will actually shoot the small minion lizards. And that's not what you want to do. So you want to put them on the very corner and they will only aim at the big blue, okay? And this will not make you use smite even. You can use smite if you want to, but it's not. You don't have to do it. Only if somebody is trying to contest, somebody's trying to steal, then you use the smite. And you're able to throw like 3 boxes, and the boxes pretty much tank out a lot of damage in the jungle, which also means that you don't necessarily need to take 5 health potions at all. There's options for other items, like maybe taking an extra ward or something. And as you can see, the boxes are taking so much damage of the blue, and I'm able to clear it up without using my smite. And then I clear out the lizard minions, and I take E. E has a blind on it, which I will explain later on, and this is also great for clearing the jungle and taking out the damage. Then I throw the box in front of the foxes, and as you can see, it actually hits the blue one, so this is kind of shaky, but I actually can use the smite on it because this will increase the clear light bit of time, and I will be having the smite back when I get to the red. And then as you can see, I still have 4 health potions left. And you know, like I said, you don't need to really use them so much, and I'm gonna check the blue orb with if somebody is waiting for me, but that's very unlikely in this scenario. With the blue orb, as I mentioned already, you are able to check out very big camps and jump in with the deceive and kill the enemy jungle. In this guide I won't be explaining so much of the counter jungling, but I'm going to say that Shaco has an extremely good potential winning every 1v1 matchup if you have few boxes, if the enemy jungle happens to run to your boxes on the jungle. And then we go to the red. I'm gonna throw it backside so that automatically will hit the boss minion. And as you can see, I have a smite back, and then I smite it and bang, it's dead. Then I take deceive, and after this you want to go to gank. Shaco is a gank jungle. That's one thing you really need to remember. He's all about making early plays, putting lanes ahead. Farming is not that great, especially with the feral flare nerf. You don't really want to jungle so much, but you want to just make ganks because that's what Shaco is made for, and counter jungling if you're not able to make ganks. Next I'm gonna explain the Shaco's abilities. So his passive is called backstab, and this deals 20% bonus damage from striking behind. This applies to abilities as basic attacks. So your clones are, for instance, you're able to move your clone behind a dragon, and this clone will deal extra damage from attacking behind, or vice versa, you move the clone to the front. This also applies to the box or the dagger you throw. And the second ability is deceive, and Shaco goes to stealth. This is a bit of a gap closer, and you're able to jump out to dragon pits, baron pits, over cliffs. It's pretty high range to blink. It needs some back practice to do it. It has the same amount of range as flash, bit more, slightly more than flash. And once you are excited to stealth and attack, this will deal bonus critical damage. Last rank will be 220%, so it's a bit more than normal critical strike. But if you come from a backstab, this percent is 264%. But if you have an infinite edge, that's more than 300%, and that's pretty crazy deceive damage. Deceive is the ability I usually max out last, but you can also max it out second. It's highly dependent on will you do ganks more, will you farm more, or will you set up traps more. Jack in the box is the W, and this is the ability you start out in the jungle, as you can see. So it summons a box which lasts for 60 seconds, and it has a 2-second delay, and after it triggers on if somebody walks in. This can be used on turrets, inhibitors, and it's really good for pushing even. It's really good for setting up ganks and counter jungling. It's amazing. And the duration of the fear will increase over the ranks, and that is why I usually max it out first, because I want the maximum fear and the maximum burst from setting a trap, and it actually clears the jungle a bit faster too. The third ability E is called 2-shift poison, and this pretty much has a passive and active side. Listen very carefully. So the passive slows when you auto attack enemy champions or minions, but if you use the active, the passive slow will go away, and the active pretty much slows for 3 seconds while the passive slows for 2 seconds. You have to be really smart when to use the poison. You only pretty much use it for the kill, because that's what you want to do, because the slow actually lasts longer if you just auto attack, because the slow is the same amount on the dagger as it on the basic attacks. And the second thing you need to remember, that is when you throw it to the minion, it also makes them blind, so they have a 30% chance to miss attack. This is also really good for jungling, where you just don't tank out so much damage because the minions are missing attacks against you. The ultimate is called Hallucinate, and this is one of the most and hardest abilities to use in the game. It's kind of like Mordekaiser's Coast. It's actually exactly the same, but it works a bit differently. Okay, so it lasts 18 seconds. The clone deals 75% more damage, and it receives 50% extra damage though. So people are able to tell once they hit the clone, because clone doesn't carry the buffs, okay? Remember that. If you see buffs on the real Shaco, that's the real one. The clone doesn't have buffs. And it also deals 50% damage to the turrets and inhibitors, but it's still a speed pushing fucking machine. Once you throw boxes and throw hallucinate, nobody takes faster turrets than Shaco. It's crazy. And that ends up the ability part. As for the mastery part, it's pretty standard stuff, 25-5-0. Because I don't really take the butcher and the feast talents, because Shaco doesn't need them, because the boxes do all the job for him. So he is like one of the best jungle in terms of not taking damage in the jungle and having a lot of item diversity at the same time. Offensive side is always mandatory for Shaco, because tank Shaco is kind of trash and doesn't have any value, so always offensive. As for the runes, you want to take 80 reds, armor per level or armor flats for the seals, or even health or health per level, because Shaco doesn't take any damage on the jungle. He doesn't really need that. And as for the quints, you want to take lifesteal or 80, or even perhaps cooldown reduction. That's really good for Shaco. And on the glyphs, armor magic persistence per level or magic persistence flats. As for the Shaco's items, I start with Machete and 5 potions and a scrying orb. You're able to take the warding totem, but I only take it when I don't take feral flare as an item. And usually after this, I go to the wriggles as first item. I make boots. I usually go ninja tabi or mercury treads, because those are the best boots for Shaco. Mobi boots are really weak at the moment, and you shouldn't take them. Shaco has the highest base movement speed in the game. He doesn't need them. He doesn't need them at all. He outruns anyone anyways. And after this, I usually make an average plate to get that gold running, especially if I get really ahead early on, get a first plat and stuffing. I always go average plate to get that gold running. Really good in case you're not able to make ganks and you need to farm a bit. And you build static shiv out of this, because static shiv is extremely good for Shaco burst. Extremely well worked with the deceive spell. And then I go for Infinity Edge. In late game, I usually take Trinity Force for mobility and speed pushing. Situational items are Malmortius. Good item, but there's still a bug with the actual shield popping on the clone. Also, Ravenous Hydra is good lifesteal item choice. Guardian Angel is okay, but then everybody knows which one is the clone, which one is not. Ownbreaker is good for taking turrets. You know, I always said that Shaco is a split pushing god, and that's his job in the late game. He doesn't participate on team fights. He picks up single targets, kills them, and split pushes map with boxes and the ultimate. That's his job. And Ownbreaker is an okay ability to emphasis on taking turrets down. Sone's R class is also really amazing item. It's not a troll item. Shaco has a 1-to-1 AP ratio, so you get a lot of burst from that, but it's also really good for survival and giving some sustain at the same time. It's really good item. A lot of people say it's not good for Shaco, but it's extremely well. Also, out of the general items, you could do the Red Elder, but I don't really prefer that item because it's extremely painful for diving, and because the damage over time will keep the turret attacking you. But in case you're not going for Lantern, you should go that item. And that concludes my guide. Hopefully you check out my other jungle guide, well, the beginner jungle guide, and check out my other guides, subscribe, leave comments below if something's unclear. Cheers.